Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To follow up with Mr. Humphreys, with Mr. Kaufman's questions here, I know that the regulatory authorities have really kind of gone overboard and have been rather harsh in their criticism on some of the and requirements for some of the loans that were been made. And as a result, there's a little bit of an access to credit problem as a result of their pushback. Have you seen the regulators look rather harshly or with a very discriminate eye at the SBA loans? Have they given some problems with those as well?
I haven't seen that with the SBA loans specifically, but loans in general, including SBA loans, are looked at very closely. When the FDIC comes into a bank, if the bank is undercapitalized or is not producing net earnings, there's a question about the reserves. There is a tendency, I think, by the regulator to take a more difficult, serious look at all loan transactions, and it's been tough. We have really had to tape up, so to speak, for every examination. There's no doubt about that. But I also think on the other side of the question, if the bank is in good condition, reasonably well capitalized, generating some earnings to replace reserves, adequate reserves, and not a lot of defaulted loans on the books, the regulators go above and beyond to try to work with the bank to make sure that they don't go overboard on their assessments.
Love that comment, tape up.
Yeah.
As a former bank regulator, I know what you're talking about. Question for you with regards to your 90% guarantee. Your comment was you'd like to see an extension of that. I know that one of the bankers at home that I've talked to made the comment to the fact that, you know, if we could get to the 90% level, it would certainly be helpful. And I know that by extending this, I'm sure that's going to help some more folks. Have you seen the benefits of this 90% guarantee already in your bank?
Yes. Yeah. Although we haven't made any new SBA 7A 90% guaranteed loans, I see it as a benefit. 90% is better than 80% or 70%. And if you make a loan with an SBA guarantee, you've got some reasons to do so. And having that guarantee at 90% is certainly an advantage. And I mentioned earlier, liquidity is also an advantage. I think a 90% guaranteed loan is a much more saleable commodity than an 80% guaranteed loan, for example. So it's a positive thing, both for the customer and for the bank.
Well, my constituent was telling me that, you know, it looked to him like it was very helpful to him from the standpoint that suddenly, because of the increased regulatory environment by and pressure by the regulators, this is a way to shift some risk over here and sort of minimize their criticism of some of his loan portfolio. So,
well, it's hard to shift risk by virtue of the guarantee. As I mentioned earlier,
go from 50% to 90%, though. Yeah, that's still a bit of shift.
The regulators look at the loan as being for what it is. If the loan has an elevated level of risk in it, having that guarantee might be somewhat helpful, but it doesn't erase the risk involved with respect to the loan transaction, because the regulators know that you have to go through the process of collection. And that process might be very painful. And in fact, it might put the rest of the business in jeopardy just through the process of collection.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Schwartzman, with regards, you made a comment with regards to one of the programs that there's only roughly about a third of the money that actually was loaned out in it. Is that correct? Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, no, that's the amount of capital that's authorized every year by.
Why was not the balance of the funds used? Not enough demand, or was it overfunded? Too much paperwork, and my money goes through the process?
I can't
speculate.
I can't comment on whether it's too much that's authorized, but the reason that not more is utilized is a combination of the fairly slow rate at which new licenses are being issued. I think the number of licenses issued last year was only 6 or 7, and it used to be a multiple of that. So there are far fewer licensees. Obviously, that's going to reduce demand for the program, and then regular fluctuations in the market in terms of needs for capital. So it's a combination of those two things, one of which is, there's nothing we can do about in terms of the demand in the market, but the number of licensees increased.
Dr. Ransone, very quickly, you're testifying with regards to the medical technology stuff.
Yes, sir.
Maybe this is a moot question here, but how far do we go with the SBA program with regards to helping a doctor in his practice finance purchase of medical equipment, operating costs, buying buildings, refinancing debt, any of that, all of that, some of that?
The bill itself is strictly for health information technology,
Right.
and for the initial capital outlay. The problem that I can foresee in the future is once we get people over that hump is how do we continue to manage that? And that's what I think most of the physicians who are small business owners are concerned about. And they're trying to look towards the future. Part of the future is right now we don't have interoperability standards amongst computers. And so, if my computer can talk to my local hospital, that it might not work in 4 years to talk to somebody else's hospital. And if, we've asked the folks at CMS to come up with certain standards that will help us. And that's been a second barrier that a lot of physicians have had, is we're worried that you make the initial investment and then my computer can't talk to the hospital anymore. The other things that you mentioned, right now, that's where some of the stimulus funds will help cover. But, by increased funding, it will help us pay for software licenses. If we can expand our practices, it will help us pay for new hardware. If things happen where we don't meet interoperability standards, it will help us go with new technology and things like that.
Very good. Thank you. I yield back.